Hello and welcome to the science class. My name is Teacher John. I'm going to teach you Science Primary 5, Term 2. And we're going to look at root crop pests. Root crop pests. A pest is a living organism that destroys farmers' crops. A pest is a living organism that destroys farmers' crops. A pest is a living organism. A pest is a living organism that destroys farmers' crops. A pest is a living organism that destroys farmers' crops. Then let's look at examples of root crop pests. 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 We have monkeys, we have rats, we have squirrels, then we have wild pigs, mites, we have mites, we have moles, wild pigs. So all these are examples of root crop pests. They destroy root crops. Then last we have white fly. White fly. White fly. White fly. So those are examples of root crop pests. Root crop pests. Then we look at diseases that affect root crops. Diseases that affect root crops. Diseases that affect root crops. We have cassava mosaic. Cassava mosaic. Cassava mosaic affects a crop called cassava. Then we have bacterial blight. Bacterial blight. Bacterial blight also affects cassava. Then we have leaf spot. Leaf spot. Leaf spot. We have potato blight. Potato blight. They affect potatoes, especially sweet potatoes. Then we have leaf rust. This one affects carrots. Leaf rust. Leaf rust, that disease affects carrots. Then characteristics of root crop pests. Characteristics of root crop pests. Characteristics of root crop pests. They have sharp claws which help them to dig the soil. They have sharp claws. They have sharp claws for digging They have sharp claws for digging out root tubers, so their claws are sharp to dig out root tubers. Then they have sharp incisor teeth for cutting root tubers. They have well-developed incisor teeth for biting root crops or root tubers. They have well-developed teeth, incisor teeth, for biting root tubers. Examples of root crop pests, I think I've already mentioned that. How to control crop pests. How to control crop pests. How can root crop pests be controlled? How to control root crop pests. One, we can control root crop pests by spraying with pesticides. By spraying using pesticides. Spraying using pesticides. Number two, using poison. By using poison. Number three, using traps. By using traps. Then number four, by weeding. By weeding. By weeding. So all these are different ways of controlling root crop pests. You can use pesticides, you can use poison, you can use traps, and you can also weed. We look at dangers of pests to crop farmers. Dangers of pests to crop farmers. Dangers of pests to crop farmers. Dangers of pests to crops. 1. Pest damage. Pests damage crops, or pests destroy crops. Then pests destroy pests reduce crop yield. Pests reduce crop yields. Then pests make crops to dry up. Pests make crops to dry up. Then uses of pests to farmers. Uses of pests to farmers. Uses of pests to farmers. How are these pests important to crop farmers? We've looked at how they are dangerous. How can these pests be good? Some pests are a source of food, like grasshoppers, locusts. Then some are eaten by farmers' poultry. So some pests are a source of food. Some pests are a source of food, like grasshoppers and locusts. Then some pests are eaten by poultry. Some pests are a source of food to poultry. Some pests are a source of food to farmers' poultry. Some pests are a source of food to farmers' poultry, like caterpillar. Okay, so that's how farmers can control pests in the garden. That's how farmers can control pests in the garden. Let's look at harvesting and storage of root crops. Harvesting and storage of root crops. harvesting and storage of root crops. Now, harvesting is the removal of mature and ready crops from the garden. Harvesting is the removal of mature and ready crops from the garden. Harvesting is the removal of mature and ready crops from the garden. How to harvest root crops? How can root crops be harvested? How to harvest root crops? How to harvest root crops? How to harvest root crops? Now, root crops can be harvested, one, by uprooting and digging out roots using a hoe. By uprooting using hands. Then you can say by digging out root tubers using a hoe. By digging out root tubers using a hoe. Then, methods of storing root crops. Methods of storing root crops. Methods of storing root crops. So we have methods like using granaries, storing in granaries or sacks, then storing in silos or silos. Storing in granaries, storing in granaries. Number 2, storing in silos. Storing in silos, and silos are large stores for storing food. They are modern ways of storing food. They are huge storage facilities, very big, majorly used by the government to store food for a country. They are called silos. So we can store food in granaries. We put food in sacks. After drying, we put them in granaries, or we can put them in silos. Then, how to preserve root crops? How to preserve root crops? Root crops can be preserved by sun drying. Root crops can be preserved by sun drying. How to preserve root crops? By sun drying. By sun drying. We can preserve root crops by sun drying. How does sun drying preserve root crops? That's a question. How does sun drying preserve. How does sun drying preserve root crops? How does sun drying preserve root crops? Sun drying removes moisture from root crops. Sun drying removes moisture. Sun drying removes moisture from root crops. Sun drying removes moisture from root crops. So in other words, heat from the sun removes moisture from root crops and those root crops dry. Next we look at keeping and using farm records. Farm records. Let's look at record keeping. Record keeping. We shall begin by looking at farm records. This is written information about activities on the farm. A farm record is a written information. The written information about activities on the farm. A farm record is a written information about activities on the farm. Let's look at the types of farm records. Types of farm records. Types of farm records. Types of farm records. We have breeding records, inventory records, health records, production records, income and expenditure records, income and expenditure records. Those are types of farm records. We even have what called feeding records. Feeding records. Feeding records. Importance of farm records. Okay, we're looking at record keeping. What are farm records? Or what is a farm record? A farm record is a written information about activities on the farm. A farm record is a written information about activities on the farm. We have types of farm records. We have breeding records, inventory records, health records, production records, income and expenditure records. Then we have feeding records. Why do farmers keep records? Why do farmers keep records? One, to easily get bank loans, to know the profits and losses, to to plan for the farm to be taxed fairly by the government. So those are reasons why farmers keep farm records. Then we look at the science-related clubs. Examples of science-related clubs in schools. Science-related clubs. Science-related clubs. Science-related clubs in schools. One, we have the Young Farmers Club. Young Farmers Club. Number two, we have Wildlife Club. Then three, we have Red Cross Club. Red Cross clubs. So those are science-oriented clubs or related clubs in schools. And Young Farmers Club teach children practical skills of farming. And the Young Farmers Club teach children practical skills of farming. The Young Farmers Club teach children practical skills of farming. So in case you're asked the importance of a Young Farmers Club, you know what, right? So that's the end of that topic. Next we look at bacteria and fungi. The next topic is bacteria and fungi. Bacteria and fungi. Bacteria and fungi. So we begin with bacteria. Bacteria are microscopic organisms that are almost everywhere. Begin by looking at bacteria. Bacteria. So we are saying bacteria are tiny living organisms that cause diseases. Bacteria are tiny living organisms that cause diseases. Places where bacteria are mostly found. Places where bacteria are mostly found. Places where bacteria are mostly found. You can find bacteria in dustbins, rubbish pits, dirty water, latrines, toilets, dead bodies, You can also find bacteria in the soil. can find bacteria in the soil. In air. You can also find bacteria in air, and so on. Then contaminated food. So these are different areas where we can find bacteria. Contaminated water or dirty water, and so on. So these are some of the areas where bacteria can be found. These are different areas we can find bacteria. How do bacteria reproduce? We are here now. How do bacteria reproduce? How do bacteria reproduce? Underline and put a question mark. Bacteria reproduce by cell division or binary fission. By cell division, or you can say by binary fission. By binary fission or cell division. By binary fission or cell division. That's how bacteria reproduce. Then look at types of bacteria. 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 We have rod-shaped bacteria. We have rod-shaped bacteria. Number 2, we have spherical bacteria. Spherical shaped bacteria. Spherical shaped bacteria. Number 3, we have spiral-shaped bacteria. Spiral-shaped bacteria. So those are the 3 types of bacteria. Rod-shaped bacteria, also known as bacilli. Spherical-shaped bacteria, known as cocci. Then spiral-shaped bacteria. Then look at groups of bacteria. Groups of bacteria. Groups of bacteria. Groups of bacteria. We have 2 groups of bacteria. We have harmful bacteria and useful bacteria. Useful bacteria. Then we have harmful bacteria. Harmful bacteria. Harmful bacteria, then useful bacteria. Importance of bacteria. Importance of bacteria. Importance of bacteria. How are bacteria important? Bacteria helps in decomposition, fermentation, and bacteria also helps in making vaccines. Bacteria helps in decomposition. Then number 2, bacteria helps in fermentation. Bacteria helps in fermentation. Said bacteria helps in decomposition of organic matter. Then bacteria helps in fermentation. Then bacteria helps in making vaccines. Number 3, bacteria helps in making vaccines. Then number 4, nitrogen fixing bacteria fixes nitrogen in the soil. Nitrogen fixing bacteria fixes nitrogen in the soil. Nitrogen fixing bacteria fixes nitrogen in the soil. That's how bacteria are important. Then we look at dangers of bacteria. Dangers of bacteria. Dangers of bacteria. How are bacteria harmful? Dangers of bacteria. 1, bacteria cause diseases. Bacteria cause diseases. Bacteria make food go bad. Bacteria make food go bad. Bacteria make food to go bad. Then bacteria cause food poisoning. Bacteria cause food poisoning. And food poisoning is a disease caused by eating contaminated food. Food poisoning is a disease caused by eating contaminated food. Then we have diseases caused by bacteria. Diseases caused by bacteria. Diseases caused by bacteria. Diseases caused by bacteria. We have tuberculosis, whooping cough, the one we call pertussis, We have diphtheria. We have cholera. Apart from cholera, we have diarrhea. We have dysentery. And we have typhoid. All these are diseases caused by bacteria. Then, lastly, we look at how to control dangers caused by bacteria. 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 One is boiling water for drinking, by boiling water for drinking. Going for immunization. Going for immunization against diseases like tuberculosis, whooping cough, and diphtheria. 3. Washing hands before eating food. Washing hands before eating food. Number 4, washing hands after toilet use. Washing hands after toilet use. So whenever you use the toilet, you're supposed to wash your hands. Before you drink water, that water must be boiled, and so on. Then conditions that favor multiplication of bacteria. Conditions that favor multiplication of bacteria. Conditions that favor multiplication. Conditions that favor multiplication of bacteria. Conditions that favor multiplication of bacteria. Now we have 3 conditions. 1, before bacteria multiply, there must be food, because they need to feed. Before bacteria can multiply, there must be warmth. There must be warmth. That's why bacteria cannot multiply in a refrigerator, because the conditions in a refrigerator are too cold, or the temperature in a refrigerator is too low. So bacteria cannot multiply there. Then number 3, there is moisture. Bacteria cannot multiply in a dry place. They need moisture or they need water in order to multiply. If you put something in a dry place, you can be sure that that thing will not rot, because we shall not have bacteria will not aid decomposition. Bacteria can only aid decomposition if there is warmth, if there is food, and if there is moisture or water. So in our next lesson, we shall look at fungi. In our next lesson, we shall look at fungi. Thank you for listening to me. May the Almighty God bless you abundantly.